Hi, everyone. I'm Grace Fountain from Schoolie Mitchell, and I have Matt here from the Entrepreneur Source. Matt, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yes, well, thank you so much for the intro. Matt Sewell, career ownership coach with the brand, The Entrepreneur Source. And I've been a coach with The Entrepreneur Source for a little over a year. So it's right at about 14 months now.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your background and what inspired you to become a career ownership coach?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. I was initially, I had a really good W-2 career. And I was one of the fortunate few that probably have never been impacted by layoffs, but I've had to lay off plenty of people in my previous capacities. So the last role that I had was working for Meta Platforms, leading the privacy incident management program for all of the Meta products and services. And around April of 2023, that's how far back it goes, we announced some layoffs. And I frankly had just gotten to the point where I'm like, I'm tired of doing this. This is not the level of impact that I want to have. So I started going on my own career ownership coaching journey with another TES coach. And we started exploring different possibilities. And it kind of really opened my mind to the concept of being an entrepreneur. And I looked at a lot of different concepts. But what inspired me was what he was doing. And I said, I think I could do a really good job of this. You're actually helping people and opening their mind to different possibilities. And it's a great lifestyle business because I can pretty much do it from anywhere I live. So that was a part of my own personal discernment.
Oh, that's awesome. When working with clients, what is your process for understanding their goals, skills, and financial needs before recommending the franchise options to them?
That's a really good question. And I'm going to address it in a kind of multiple ways. Everything for me as a coach, it always starts at what are we solving for, right? Because there's so many different possibilities and so many ways to achieve one's goals. And for many of my clients, it's an and strategy, not an or strategy. So what I always start with every client the same way is I really want to understand them as a person first, right? What makes you tick? And we have a lot of different coaching tools that we'll leverage for that. And I have them do a kind of like a behavioral assessment survey. And that kind of gives us a good jump off point to kind of start the conversation going. And then I really get very specific on goals, and I kind of encourage my clients, like, let's create these as SMART level goals, specific, measurable, attainable, reasonable, like time bound. We need to understand and get very specific and put parameters around that. And actually, it's okay I encourage my clients to dream a little bit. Turn your pragmatic brain off and let's dream about what you ultimately want, because oftentimes, our pragmatic brains limits what is possible for ourselves. So once I really get an understanding of the goals, then we kind of start talking about their background, their history. What's the type of work that you like doing? What do you not like doing? And what's the why behind that? So once I really understand that, then that's when we kind of go more into the educational. Well, let's just learn about different possibilities. And that's when oftentimes with my clients, when they talk about their goals, it reeks of autonomy, control, predictability and schedule, or schedule flexibility. And that's what entrepreneurship can provide to a lot of different people. So in that instance, that's when I generally, in this educational part of the coaching journey, is that's when I kind of expose them to what could entrepreneurship look like. And for those people, some have had a thought, I'd love to do this, but it's too scary or whatever. And I'm like, well, we're just going to learn. Like, this is just, we're demystifying this. So that's when I really kind of open their minds to the world of franchising, because what that does is that creates that, it takes away the pressure of having to figure it all out for yourself. So you can, what if we learned that you actually could be a business owner and be in control of your own destiny, but you're not by yourself to go figure it all out. So that's when I then, once I find out that a client's really, really interested in learning, then I'm like, let's just have a conversation. What does it take? Funding and creating a business is part of discovery as well. So let's go let's learn about how people get into business ownership and how might they start a business if that's what makes sense for them. And then I use that really to kind of glean what's your current financial situation and what might need to happen for you to unlock what you desire for yourself. So it's a very intentional process, and all of this through the entire journey is building, a rapport, truly understanding the client's needs. And by understanding how they communicate, what's unique about my coaching practice and the way that I approach it is it's very tailored to them, right? Where are you in your journey? And I claim not to be an expert at anything. That's what's beautiful about the journey of discovery and working with a career ownership coach like myself, because we create a safe space for you just to learn and explore. And you have a person that's an advocate to just challenge you. What if you're wrong? What more information do you need to know if you're right or you're wrong? Because all we care about is you finding that pathway. So it's a very long-winded answer to your question. But it's the reality is there's no one size fits all, because it's really catered to the specific client and what the problem they're trying to solve for.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you have really a thorough process too, which is really good for your for your clients.
Yeah.
And how do you evaluate and vet franchises before recommending them to a client? What criteria is most important to you?
Well, my general approach is, because it's so centered on the client and it's centered on their goals. I generally I will look for something that I think will be interesting to them. And there's a series of steps kind of setting up for discovery where I kind of pressure test their bias. What are they passionate about? What are they not passionate about? What if you're wrong? What if you're passionate about something, but it can't enable you to achieve your goals? Does that matter to you? So all of that is kind of pressure testing how open-minded they are to the different possibilities. Because when people can really open their mind and look at the possibilities from a standpoint of this will enable me to achieve the outcome, well, then it really doesn't matter what industry it's in. So with that being said, there are, as we go through and review what are the things that are interesting for them to learn about, I will intentionally find one that I think they're going to like, right? Just based on my understanding. And there's a clear aspect of affordability. Is it approachable for them? Because there's nothing worse than getting someone really excited about something and then they come to find out that it's not going to work for them. Then I will intentionally find something that is going to be a complete curveball. And this is all by design. It's very intentional. And I've warned them in advance, kind of inoculated in advance, that I'm going to show you something that you would have never thought about for yourself. And then I go find maybe a really cool business model that I think will allow them to really, really hit their lifestyle goals. And then it's through that, looking at these three different possibilities, that's where we go in this journey of discovery to learn, well, what do we like about all of these? What is the right fit for your specific goals and what is not? The way I always frame it to my clients is, imagine that we're playing a game of darts. Right now, the first part of discovery, we're just trying to hit the dartboard. Once we get enough information, we can then start aiming. And that it allows us to be very intentional, but make good use of everybody's collective time. Because everybody understands partnering with the Entrepreneur Source, it's all about education. It's about awareness. Because many people want what business ownership can give them. They just don't know how to start, and it's very intimidating. So by creating a safe space for them to learn and explore, and having key partners like you guys, it makes it a great candidate experience.
That's amazing. And it's 100% true. It's more so you're more so focused on the client versus the franchises that you're looking into. And I usually find when you throw in a curveball is that's when usually they pick the curveball one, which is always so funny to me.
It is really funny, because I actually, when I present the possibilities to my client, because we're human, we have bias. So I'll ask them the question of, like, of the three, which are you more drawn to and why? And naturally, they will go to, the one that I probably thought they were. Like, I don't set their expectations of what's what, but I just kind of pressure test. And I'm like, well, it'll be interesting as you go through discovery if that's the one that still allows you to best hit your goals. And I will tell you a metric on just my business, and I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I would say 65% of the time, if a client decides to go through business ownership, through franchising, it's usually with the curveball 65% of the time, at least on my metrics.
No, I've heard it. I've heard it so many times. What's an example of a challenging client placement, and how did you work through it to find a good franchise fit?
Yeah. So, I did. I can. So I had one client that was recently laid off, and one of the challenges was getting her head calibrated around she's not buying a business like and buying a job, because that's the way she kind of came across it, thought about it, that kind of opening her mind to looking at it as an investment in your future, right? And when it came to funding, she was struggling with, well, do I need to do a loan? Do I need to do this? And I said, that's the beauty of discovery. You don't have to make a decision, but let's learn about all the different vehicles. And we might find that one just really resonates with you. So after going through this funding education too, that's when she discovered that the rollover business startup program really made sense for her to be able to open her business. And so she was pretty intentional about really doing the math, making sure that she had built up enough funding to get the business not only open, but enough working capital to fund the business for a good 6 months. And that's when she realized that, well, actually, there's nothing holding you back other than one thing. And that was fear. It was like, we've literally checked all the boxes, right? And she even acknowledged that, well, all the boxes are checked. But what if it doesn't work? And I said, but what if it does? Like fear, we turn it into an acronym, is false evidence appearing real. And I said, and that's the beauty of discovery too. You're learning about all the risks so you can proactively figure out ways to mitigate those. And you know what? You may come up to the reality that it's too much for you to handle. And that's okay too, because we learn from that. And so it was really challenging because it was checking all the boxes and everything was pointing in the direction of, I want to go in this direction, but fear just kept pulling her back. And then so I would just routinely kind of bring up and the concept of imposter syndrome. There's fear of success, there's fear of failure. All of these things are legit, but the key learning is through discovery and through validation and validating with existing owners in that concept, you get strong signal. Can you proactively mitigate against those risks? And are they really risky once you know what they are and how you're going to address it? And I think once she finally realized that, she was like, yeah, there's nothing stopping me from doing it. And then what happens is that's when that moment of clarity actually happens. It turns into excitement. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this possibility now. And that's when you know. And I've had many clients, they're like, well, how would I know? And I'm like, you'll know when you know. There's no, I'm not going to be able to tell you. You'll be the one to tell me.
I love that response though, when people say, well, what if it doesn't work out? And it's like, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? Now, what's the best thing that could happen? And let's focus on that. It's kind of like a safety net too. It's like, you already know what the worst thing could possibly happen. Now let's figure out what the best things that could happen, which I kind of love that. It's so inspiring hearing that. How do you tailor your approach for clients with varying financial situations or business backgrounds?
So, I mean, this is not a very great answer, but it's the truth. Is honestly, I treat everybody the same, meaning the coaching experience is the same. It is going to be tailored towards them. But as we go through this journey of learning about them and their specific situation, their background, their skills, then that's when we unlock, well, what are the things where you might want to grow? Because like some people are like, hey, I want to do something that's comfortable, right? That I have a background and expertise in. I'm like, okay, well, let's challenge that assumption. What if you're wrong, right? What if that actually is not what you want to do to unlock your growth? I don't know, but you'll tell me if that is. So we just, at the end of the day, the whole coaching experience is around challenging and pressure testing. Are you sure or are you not? If you are not, or you are sure, what's the why behind it? Because the why guides us where we need to go. And I think when you think about the financial situations, What I have found in my experience, if somebody finds that, now we're going to put, I'm not going to present something to somebody that like, there's no way you could make that work for like a couple of years, but I'm going to present something that is approachable, right? So we know we're in the ballpark, but what I found is when people go into discovery, and particularly when they get to validation, where they're validating all the things that they've learned and they're measuring against their goals, money's not the problem. It's usually not the problem because they will find it. And they find it because we make funding part of the learning journey too. It's like, let's demystify all these assumptions that we have, and let's use data to show us the way. And one of it's this thing that I say to pretty much every one of my clients is like, does it matter how much the investment is if it cash flows as quickly as you need it to? Does the math, right? It's that simple. So if it's debt, sure, but can the business service the debt? Well, if it can, then what's the risk, right? It's just a different way of thinking about it, right? When the difference also is that you have the direct control. So it was not like how do tailor my approach. But I guess I kind of tailor my approach very, very specific to that specific client. And honestly, most of the time with my clients, I don't really tell them anything. I really just ask them questions. And then when they say something, I think or I feel, I'm like, is that something you think or feel, or is that something you know? Where else? What do you think the next steps are to get that answer? And who do you think we need to get it from? Because I want to put the responsibility on them. It's their journey, not my journey. And the only way that they're going to grow is, and what I find about humans, no one wants to be told what to do. We want to go through that experience and learn for ourselves. And that's what's powerful, because they find the answers for themselves. I just sit back and ask questions.
No, that's amazing. That's the whole discovery process.
For sure. There's another coach, a peer coach of mine, and he said this to me multiple times, and it really rings true, is discovery is undefeated. If you truly invest in discovery and you get intentional and you get comfortable with getting a little uncomfortable, then you're going to get what you need out of discovery.
Absolutely. And can you tell me a story of a particular client that chose the right franchise for them and found success? How does that make you feel? And how proud does it make you feel that you were able to help someone fulfill their dreams of business ownership for themselves?
Here's what's interesting about look, the measure of success for this type of business of being a career ownership coach, the ultimate measure of success is placements, right? Helping people find that next step, generically speaking. But my personal coaching measure of success is not whether you place or not. It's whether you found a moment of clarity and that you had a good experience and I provided you value. Because if I can do those things, the outcome, the placements will come, right? So it's important to I find for my practice is I'm just in it with the client 100% at whatever pace they are. And so with that being said, but placements do matter, right? And when you do, because you got to fund a business too. So, but there's one client that she ended up getting laid off from her company, happened to be Boeing, and she was a remote worker, and she struggled. She had some medical challenges that she was dealing with, and you could see that this was really holding her back, and she wasn't getting the level of interviews. And I said, well, let's just go learn about business ownership. And she was a very quick decision maker, but she was basically like, this is not right for me. I don't think I can do it. And we spent probably about 5 months together, just kind of looking at different possibilities, and imposter syndrome started setting in. And I said, just go have further validation calls with the existing owners. And lo and behold, she looked at probably like 6 different businesses. And because of the previous learning, she was able to apply what she liked, what she didn't like, and what she was ultimately solving for. And that's just, it takes whatever time it takes. And the fact that she was very motivated and had tons of perseverance and was open to coaching and was open to being challenged, that's what made it super rewarding. And lo and behold, she did place. She ended up opening a recruiting practice and is doing amazing, crushing it. And she has full control over her schedule. It's more of a solopreneur practice to start. Time she can grow with an incremental recruiters if she desires. But I think that is just so rewarding when actually, and because one thing that any session that I have with my clients, I always ask them, one of the final questions before we, disengage the call. I'm like, so if you think about our conversation today, what was most valuable for you? What did you get out of it? And oftentimes people don't like self-reflect. So I guess kind of forcing them to think about it. And then sometimes they say, I don't really know. And I'm like, oh, well, I do. So this is what you took away from today. Like, because you told me, right? Because I was listening to you. And when you see that level of engagement, and we end that, and then I think that's one of the pieces of feedback that my client gave me. She's like, you always held me accountable. And she said, I didn't realize that I needed coaching, but you made me realize that that's exactly what I needed. And that in itself is the most rewarding thing.
No, that's awesome. The success and rewarding feeling is just really bringing value to your clients, which is, it's something that really helps you sleep at night. You get to go to bed at peace, knowing that you're
Yeah.
helping people.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's funny. I want to only supplement this further because I've had another scenario where I've had a client. Some clients just make decisions really, really quickly, and they go look at things and they just will immediately go, "Okay, I want to go open this business." And then I have to now because I have to sleep at night, like you said. So I start challenging them. I'm like, "How do you know? You've only had 2 calls. Like you haven't even talked to existing business owners. You hadn't even got through the franchise disclosure document, but for some reason you think that this is something you want to do." I said, "You don't have enough data. You don't have enough information." And sure, maybe they would have done it. And then maybe it's still, this is a person that actively has been in my pipeline right now. And I had to literally slow them down. And the place that they were going, now they're leaning in another path. And I'm like, this is why discovery and being intentional and being an advocate for your clients, and don't let them, look, we all have free will. I'm not going to prevent you from making whatever decision you want, but I'm certainly going to challenge you on it. And so I think it goes both ways.
Definitely. What a change though from, being in a position where you unfortunately were laying people off, and then now you're where you are is helping people and getting them into the best spot in their lives, which is such a huge change, and that's probably why it's more easier to sleep at night versus where it was.
Well, I will say, no one wakes up one day and says, I want to be a coach. Well, maybe they do, but I wasn't one of those people. But I will say that being a business owner, and I picked a business that it's deeply rooted in, I think, my natural skill sets and the things that I love to do, which is ultimately help people grow. That was the most rewarding thing of my W-2 life, was just building amazing teams. But I think going through that entire journey, and when you're helping these individuals, go through this discernment, is that you actually realize that while you're helping them grow, they're actually helping you grow. Because I wasn't a very good coach last year. I'm just going to be honest. I was very bumbly, fumbly. Like, what do
I
I
don't
need to
believe
go
it.
do? but it's one of these situations that over time, just the more you do it and the more you really lean into the ears to mouth ratio and you listen more than you talk, then that's where the magic happens.
I completely agree. No, that's amazing. And then the last question I have for you, Matt, is what are the most common misconceptions clients have about franchising, and how do you address them?
Yeah. So I would say oftentimes people this misconception will be, that I am, I have to follow the system. It's very, very, rigid, and I don't have enough autonomy and control. And that's very, very common. And And the way that I address that is twofold. I say, would it be interesting to you to find out that that might not be right? Is that worth spending some time and energy into pressure test? I could tell you you're right. I could tell you you're wrong. But I think what's more valuable is you learning about that. And are you willing to invest in discovery to go figure that out? Because that's all we're talking about doing is learning. So that's one way that I address it. And then when people start getting into discovery, people usually learn of like, oh, franchising actually makes sense. The royalty actually makes sense. And I've actually challenged them. They're like, this royalty is so high, and I can't believe I'm giving away this amount after I'm investing so much. I'm like, well, why don't you do this? This concept, if you want to go invest the time and energy, go try to replicate it. Go figure out for yourself, if you were going to go solve all of these problems that need to make this business be successful, which that is now, what would it cost you to go do that? And then do the math, right? And is the juice worth the squeeze? And 95% of the time, everybody's like, oh my gosh, yes, franchising makes all the sense, because they answered the question for themselves. The key is I'm just pushing them to go answer the question for themselves. So and I guess the other thing that I would say is that, and when they go through discovery, I do at some point go, look, franchising is going to give you 95% of what you need, but that final 5% is on you. You got to make it work, right? And you have autonomy. And that 5% hits people a couple of different, usually one or two different ways. Oh my gosh, that's exciting. I get to figure out that final 5%, and that makes me excited to go figure it out. Or the other is like, oh crap, I got to go figure out the final 5%. Neither is right or wrong. It's just, what do you want to do about it now, right? Because you've learned, and when you get to the point of validating, you've learned everything you need to learn. The key is just pressure testing it, and does it enable you to get that? So I think that's one, is like that I'm constrained, that I'm giving away some of the equity is another one. And that's how we kind of address those things. And I would say the other key misconception about franchising is that people, for some reason, they don't think of it, when they think of franchising, they think that they're working for somebody else. And so I have to really spend a lot of time in education of like, no, you own your own business, right? But you have a support structure to help you and set you up for success, because it's a symbiotic relationship. They're not going to be successful unless you're successful. And oh, by the way, every franchise out there has to annually report on who's coming into the business and who's leaving the business. And it doesn't serve them well to have people join the business and then later a year close shop. Like, so that's why probably the biggest of all the misconceptions is people initially think it's a sales process. And I'm like, it's not a sales process. While you're trying to assess if this possibility will enable you to achieve your goals, just understand that every one of these brands is assessing you to determine if you will be a good fit, because it's in no one's best interest for you to fail.
Absolutely. And that's so true. That's the best way to put it too. I'm definitely stealing that when I do speak with candidates. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Matt. That is all the questions that I do have for you, but you can really tell and you can feel your passion and your excitement that you do have in the position that you are in, helping people in guiding them to business ownership. So no, I appreciate your time so much. And thank you so much for answering all of these questions.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Grace, for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure. I am somewhat passionate and somewhat long-winded, so thank you for demonstrating your patience and letting me be verbose.
No, I love it, because again, as you said, where you were last year, I'm learning so much still to this day. Everyone learns every single day, but I appreciate it so much because I can take so much away from this conversation.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. That's very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.